This video is going to be a film study look at Za'Darius Smith, the Detroit Lions' new defensive end slash outside linebacker. Yesterday's was more commentary based. I did display some film generally of his sacks in 2024, requests to see him in the run game, questions about it. And so I was able to go compile some plays, 8 or 10 plays here that kind of illustrate how well he plays against the run, and a couple of things to mention, talk about in terms of perhaps limitations, or if we were going to be really picky about Za'Darius Smith as a player in 2024 that I'll go ahead and mention. Number one, he's extremely tough and physical. That goes without saying. Going back through some of the 30, 34 plays that I saved up, comes across some of my notes very strong. Must be mentioned again and again. He redirects well, whether it's a run play to him, away from him, a pass concept. He just is a force of nature. He just plays through contact. If he were a tight end or a running back coming out of college into the draft, one of the things that I know would be on his ledger or checklist in terms of what his attributes are is great contact balance. That's a phrase that you hear generally with offensive players, in some cases DBs as well. He's got incredible contact balance, and in fact, sometimes he almost kind of uses offensive blockers to ricochet off of them. It seems intentional because he does it so often. Nonetheless, despite being physical, very technical and efficient in his pass rush moves, in my opinion. I would say he is a guy who uses the spin move more than others. It's not as devastating as Aiden Hutchinson's, but when you see a couple of the moves here and from yesterday's video, I think that kind of will come through. He's very rugged. And one thing to mention, this is both a positive, 70, 80% positive, 20%, maybe 30% negative, is he pinches often. So a pinch is you're lined up outside as a typical edge defender, let's say outside the guard, outside the tackle, in a 5 technique, and he pinches to the inside gap, B gap, often. The Browns, do it a lot when the running back is set to his side, and it oftentimes is from the boundary. So when I say that it could possibly be a negative, I'm talking about predictability. Do I think that Detroit is going to do that as often? No. In fact, Aaron Glenn doesn't do that a lot. Za'Darius Smith almost offers the Lions more options playing the quarterback zone read option game than other guys that are currently on the roster, at least, offer right now. Aiden Hutchinson offered those same things, essentially versatility. He has the ability to go tackle the quarterback, sit, squat, stay balanced, stay still, wait till the ball is given to the running back, and then fold inside. And I'll show you an example of that, I think, against the Ravens. And then another thing that he can do is pinch or stunt to the inside gap and rip with his outside arm to get to that gap, to get across the face of the tackle or across the face of a tight end. And essentially, once he's on that track, once he's in that gap, there's no stopping him from getting to the football if it is, in fact, a run play away from him. If I didn't do a good job explaining that, forgive me, first of all. Second of all, you will hopefully see some images of it, some video here in a moment that'll kind of explain it a little more clearly than perhaps I did. If we were going to be picky, we would say he's a boundary side defensive end in most alignments in 2024. Well, Myles Garrett's on the other side. That's your field side defensive end. He's more athletic, he's quicker, and more dangerous as a one-on-one pass rusher. So I get it. I understand. Perhaps it's not a limitation of Za'Darius Smith. Perhaps it's just being utilized or deployed along with Myles Garrett. One thing I would note is he's a little stiff at times. And so what I mean by that is when he does redirect, it takes him a step and a half to redirect from one angle to another, as opposed to some guys who can redirect a little bit quicker. So we will actually start this film study with him as a pass rusher, again, just to notice the versatility in his alignment and also how efficient he is with his moves. The Browns used him as an interior pass rusher because 54 is actually pretty good. 54 is a backup D end, I guess, if you will, who actually has the only sack recorded against Ravens left tackle Ronnie Stanley this year. Not Myles Garrett, not Za'Darius Smith, but number 54. So part of the reason that they're getting Za'Darius Smith kicked inside is because 54, who you can kind of not see here because of the frame and also the goalpost and the flag, is a really good pass rusher as well. I love this move. It's a second effort move whereby he's stepping to the tackle first, and then I think 54 might perhaps loop underneath. Doesn't necessarily happen here, but I love this from the standpoint of the second effort, what occurs right here. When he slaps with the outside arm and swims with the inside arm, there's just a level of professionalism that reminds me of one of my favorite players. Now, some of you as Lions fans may not, know who this player was, nor think as highly of him as I do, and that's Pernell McPhee. Pernell McPhee was an absolute monster as a run defender on the edge starting around like 2015. He actually had a second go around with the Ravens. Uh, and in 2020 had probably one of the best games as an edge defender against the run against the Tennessee Titans when the Ravens went down there and were able to beat the Titans, I think, in the wild card round. Pernell McPhee and Za'Darius Smith actually played together for a long time, so maybe the fact that they were both so good at those techniques illustrates whoever was training them. I don't know. He gives me that same vibe at this point. A guy who's a little stiff but incredibly strong and plays downhill football on train tracks. Now look, he gets credit for the sack here against the Ravens, and I don't know who else you give credit to the sack. 43 is on the blitz, gets up the middle, and you'll get the end zone angle of this, by the way. Za'Darius Smith is against Roger Rosengarten, who's been playing pretty well as a rookie right tackle for the Ravens. Clearly, from this angle, it doesn't even really look like he gets much of a piece of Lamar Jackson other than his hand right here. But the blitz, the accumulation of the stunt, I should say, is what gets him credit for the sack. He's going to let you know when he gets sacked, too. That's one thing you notice after the play. When he is involved, he's going to let people know and celebrate. He's going to get the home crowd involved. I usually like him a little more than on this particular play. This is the same play from the end zone angle in terms of his hand location, his hand placement. It's almost always on the inside. You can see the violent, shocking nature that he gives Rosengarten there. And it usually wins a little bit more definitively, but if it does not, he's always got a counter move. And when I say he's technical or tactical, technically savvy and reacts well during the play and has great contact balance. What I mean by there is if his initial move, quote, doesn't work, he's got a secondary move he can work off of it, and that's just something you don't always get with younger guys that are playing out on the edge. Violent rush here against the right tackle. Pay attention to the hand placement a little bit here as well. It's against the Cowboys earlier in the season. So look at the inside arm. You know, we've got we're losing it a little bit because of the angle that we got. We're not facing behind the defense. But he gets into 78 with the inside arm, the right arm, that's kind of obscured by 78's body. He's just, when he plays on these tracks, when he plays downhill, there aren't too many tackles, in my opinion, that can deal with him over the course of a 60-minute game. Is he going to play every single snap? No. There's going to be some series or some moments where they get him off the field, and that would be the smart move, if you ask me, for a 32-year-old defensive end that you want to keep fresh for when they get to the playoff situations. And like I said, he's always going to let you know that he was the guy who made the play. Finally, one more illustration of a sack. This one is against the right guard / center, and this, I think, speaks to the point I was trying to make in the lead-in, where he's very technical. He's chopping down with the right hand, so he's breaking the posture of this guard. So the guard's left shoulder is canted down or pointed down. His right shoulder's kicking up. That's because of the swat down by Za'Darius Smith. And then he violently runs into the center. I think he's setting a pick here for 72. It doesn't work out well. Let me get to where you can see the move. My apologies. Hopefully it's not annoying when you see it run back like that a couple of times. I like to show the moves so you can see it. It helps me gain a better understanding, number one, of the actual move and how it works out in practice. And also it helps me to be able to break it down better for you guys. When I was a coach, we would do that. We would set the film up so you could see portions of the play over and over and over again. And what it would do is oftentimes it would help kids understand. They'd be able, as our offensive linemen, they'd be able to see moves like this coming because they saw something in particular, whether it was the hip being opened up a little bit early, the inside foot being back. Sometimes it was a giveaway. But Za'Darius Smith, man, you guys are going to love him. I think that, look, we were hoping that we signed him as Ravens fans before the 2022 season. I talked about that yesterday in the first initial video that I did of him, and we would certainly like to have him on our roster now. So let's get to him against the run. A couple of things. The Lions against option concepts in the last 2 years. Think back to the Ravens game in 2023. Well, I know you may not wish to, but for a moment, one of the things I noticed immediately was when the Ravens would have the running back and quarterback mesh, the outside linebackers, DNs, would violently go down the line of scrimmage to tackle the running back. There's nothing wrong with that strategy. It has its place. What it means is the quarterback's going to keep the ball. So this is Joe Burrow. It's not as much of a threat as some of the other quarterbacks that you'll face in those situations. That's one way to play it. Another way is kind of come across the line since you're unblocked and kind of half man it, stay flat, stay square, wait for the quarterback to give the ball, and then fold inside to make the tackle. Or if the quarterback keeps it to throw, get upfield, try to contain the quarterback. It's essentially half man, half of the running back, half of the quarterback. And that's a viable strategy as well. Za'Darius Smith has that down pat. He's seen this concept hundreds or thousands of times. He's always going to do a nice job of folding down in here. There's an inside linebacker involved as well. I think it's JOK, who's normally a boundary side inside linebacker. But he's going to stay balanced and stay square. He offers Aaron Glenn a little bit more options, athleticism, versatility, if you will, such that if an athletic quarterback keeps it, he can redirect and try to contain that guy. And it doesn't really apply to this particular snap. End zone angle, same play. Hopefully gives you a little bit of an idea of it. And then we're going to talk about him as a part of stunts. You can see he's lined up to the field here. And keep that in mind as we go through the next 2 or 3 plays. But this is still the zone read, theoretically. Joe Burrow could be reading this. He folds down. I think it ends up being a 3-yard gain. Another element or example of this, except the quarterback is under center, and you're going to get, number one, jet motion to him, which could pull or stretch some defenses horizontally. And number two, Mark Andrews is going to arc release to the outside. So Za'Darius Smith, is being given 2 keys that could widen him up, pull him to the bottom side of our screen, the left side of the defense, right side of the Ravens offense. It's a jet dive concept. So you've got the jet and then the give on to Henry, the run concept. He's going to kind of try to fold it back. I think it goes for 4 yards. We're talking about Za'Darius Smith here. Again, this is a little bit of that half man where he's waiting to see where the football is, and then he'll be a +1 late. It's not a zone read from the standpoint of the quarterback in the shotgun reading him, but it's the same concept. The Ravens, have put him in conflict with the arc release by the tight end. He ignored it. And the jet motion by Tylan Wallace, he kind of did step out as a result of that. You'll get the end zone angle so you can see it. Again, it's a 4-yard gain. This is different from how the Lions generally play concepts like this. They're going to be typically dedicated to these things in terms of running down the line of scrimmage. So certainly in this case, it would work out different. He would be there sooner. He would be on top of Derrick Henry sooner as opposed to playing it patient. My point in showing you this play is you've got multiple tools in your toolbox if you're Aaron Glenn when Za'Darius Smith is on the field for how to handle some of these plays, some of these concepts, because he's done them all before. We have film of it to kind of prove it. Where he really shines, in my opinion, is pinching, running down the line of scrimmage when the defense, in this case the Browns, but Aaron Glenn starting here in Week 10, when they think the run is away from him. So this is Za'Darius Smith. He's going to pinch inside and go down the line of scrimmage violently. Once he gets into that gap, he's on the train tracks. He is a train. You're not going to prevent him from getting to the point of attack. He's not protecting the edge. In this case, the defense has taken one of the inside linebackers, I think it's JOK, kicked him outside. So he would be the contained player on the quarterback if, in this case, Lamar Jackson was to keep it and boot to the outside. So you're removing your edge defender, essentially a forced gap exchange between the edge defender and an inside linebacker who could, like I said, fold over the top and be the contained player if the quarterback was to keep it. Let's get to the end zone angle, run it a couple of times so you guys can see it. You can see the communication that is occurring. Let me just run it back a couple of times here. You can see Za'Darius Smith, JOK, communicating to the interior guys. Why? Because they're essentially exchanging roles. They've run one of the safeties over into the boundary, and Za'Darius Smith is going to pinch and then run down the line, get involved in the tackle. JOK, who is right there, it was off screen to your left. Sorry, you lose him because of the frame. He would be the quarterback contained player, like I said. This just affords Aaron Glenn more opportunities. I mean, there's other guys making plays here. We're focusing on Za'Darius Smith in this particular instance. It's 54 on first contact. Again, I said that's one of the players that's a little underrated for that defense, and one of the reasons why on some pass rush situations, Za'Darius Smith was kicked inside. So as an edge defender, again, running back to his side, tight end here, Very similar conceptually to the plays that I just showed you. Look at what they've done with the safety, number 9, on motion. They've widened him up and allowed Za'Darius Smith to pinch down and cross the face of the tight end, get involved in the tackle. He gets a hold of J.K. Dobbins for a loss of 1. So when I say cross the face of the tight end, here's Za'Darius Smith inside of the tight end's gap, running that way. Now let's go back to his pre-snap alignment. He's outside of that same tight end. I'll pause it a couple of times while he's working his way down there. Works to head up, anticipates the snap, gets into the C gap. There's no blocking scheme for him because the tackle is stepping to the backside inside linebacker. Somewhat similar here. He's to our right. The defense is left. You guys might lose him for a moment. I think this camera shifts. Never mind. He does stay in frame. So 2 tight ends, running back on the same side. You guys might know I call this a gun, where the running back, tight end are on the same side. In this case, it's 2. They're into the boundary. And the Browns have done the same thing that I described a little bit ago. They've taken the inside linebacker, JOK, widened him up, and they're going to step Za'Darius Smith down. He's being briefly engaged by both tight ends. JOK is going to get a KO or a KD, a knockdown on this tight end, 87, and Za'Darius Smith folds inside to go get involved against Saquon Barkley. I think it's a gain of 3 yards. He's very physical, in my opinion. I think the film shows that. You guys shouldn't, at this point, really need me to explain it. He plays according to his responsibility, in my opinion, fits perfectly in Detroit, where I think Dan Campbell and those guys are, absolutely no BS in terms of executing your role or your job on a particular play. And then he's physically able to overwhelm certain guys with that pinch or that stunt to the inside gap. Where I will be interested to see is his effectiveness when people try to run stretch at him. If he's dealing with a tight end, I think he's going to win that matchup 70, 80% of the time and really force that run play to either cut downhill now or bow out, which is not going to be a good idea with Detroit's speed on defense. Against tackles, I would say that this is somewhat conjecture, but it is film-based. I just didn't have as many plays to show you guys to kind of prove it. Against tackles on that same concept that are stepping to him to maybe run a stretch concept or outside zone, I would say you're looking at probably 40 to 50% wins as opposed to 70 to 80 against tight ends. Last play that I'll show you, conceptually similar to what I've been describing. Washington puts the tight end running back on the same side, A-gun. So this is Za'Darius Smith right here. He's got a safety stacked on top of him. Watch the way they play it. He pinches to the inside. It's a 2-yard gain, but he disrupts schemes because of the awareness of the defense, the awareness of the guys on field who are making calls. If Jaden Daniels was to keep this football, you have one player for quarterback and then a secondary player for quarterback who one of those guys would have also been responsible for covering the tight end if he ran a route. In this case, he did not. He's trying to deal with Za'Darius Smith, who's crossing his face to get to the point of attack. Very smart football player, experienced, been around, been in the NFC North Division twice before, and had, let's just be real, 10-plus sacks for the Packers his first 2 years. In fact, 26 over a 2-year period, and then 10 sacks for the Vikings in 2022. You think he gets to 10 sacks for this Lions team? I don't think so. Overall, meaning he came here with 5. Does he get 5 more? It's possible. I would expect that given the amount of times that the Lions are going to be ahead, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I've been talking about that dynamic for the better part of, at this point, 3 months since guys were drafted and or acquired. There's just going to be more pass plays against them. There's been 3 consecutive games, however, of 100 yards rushing or more allowed by this Lions defense. A little bit surprising to me. Do I think it's a pattern worthy of our concern? Yes, I do. Do I think it's going to continue at that rate? In fact, 2 of those games have been, I think, 138 yards or more rushing. I'm not sure that it's going to continue to that rate. But Detroit's in a great position defensively to be able to handle teams. Is he the premier pass rusher that so many Lions fans wanted? No. Is he a really good football player that you now have the opportunity to evaluate on film and in the locker room and out on the practice field? Is he the kind of veteran leader that you want that fits in with so many other guys? I think he is, but that remains to be seen in terms of the Lions coaching staff. I think it's a great signing. I said that in yesterday's video at the request of people who said, I'm concerned for him against the run, I decided to put this video together this afternoon among other projects that I'm working on. Let me know if you guys appreciated it. As you may or may not know, likes and comments drive all the content on YouTube. So if you did enjoy this video, first of all, please comment down below to help this video get pushed out to a larger audience, Lions fans specifically. Second of all, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy it, some of my thoughts, the plays that I chose, and the order that I picked to display them, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.